Hello, everyone. Hi, and welcome to our session today. Get Certified DP-700, How to Become a Fabric Data Engineer. My name is Moria, and I'm part of the team together with Jordan, who are moderating this session and will be presenting during the other session of this series. So for those of you who are new to the Reactor, this series is part of the Reactor program. The Reactors are hubs for technical learning, where students, developers, entrepreneurs can actually learn during in-person and online events. We offer events every day, pretty much quite a few events during the day. Where if you scan the QR code now, you can visit our website and find out more about the upcoming events we have at the time zone where you are located. We have 10 physical locations worldwide when we offer in-person events. However, since we offer a lot of online events, I'm pretty sure you can find a session in your time zone if you visit our website and find out more about the online events that we have. Our sessions are also recorded, and they are available on our YouTube channel. So you can see the YouTube channel now on the screen. I'm going to share these links also in the chat soon, so don't worry if you missed any of the QR codes. This session is also recorded. The entire series is recorded, and it will be available on our YouTube channel. If you scan the QR code now on the screen, you can join our newsletter and receive a monthly update with all the upcoming events, depending on the location where you register from. Before we start, I wanted to go over a few updates. One of them is that we have an upcoming event on data security for AI. I will be part of this event as well. If you are keen to find out more about this event, I'm going to share the link soon in the chat. It's going to be on May 8th, 10 a.m. GMT. So this session will be in the, I think, more EMEA time zone, but perhaps can be also available for those of you in other locations. More information will be in the chat. Before we start, please take a minute to read our code of conduct for events. We ask you to kindly be friendly, patient, and respectful in the chat. This actually applies to all of our Microsoft Reactor events, even if it's in person or online. So please take a minute to read the code of conduct. Okay, and without further ado, I want to hand it over to our speakers for today, Matthias Folland and Frank Geisler. They are going to talk about ingest and manage data in Fabric with Data Factory and notebooks. Today is the second session of the series. They're going to share more about this series and also present our moderators. So Frank, Matthias, over to you.
Hi.
Yes. Hi. So, Matthias, let's start.
Let's start. Great to be here, and what a great topic and what a great product. So,
yeah,
and what a great weather, by the way, in Switzerland. So, let's go. Well, Frank, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Frank Geisler. I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP for 12 years now, and I'm here in Germany. And in Germany, we have lovely weather too, Matthias.
That's cool. I'm Matthias Folland. I'm based in Switzerland, in Basel, so it's pretty near to Germany. And I'm an MVP since 6 years now, and since 1 year in the Microsoft Data Platform area, before I was on the Azure area. So, well, let's go. We have moderators, and we are live and interactive. So we have a chat. When you have any questions, feel free to ask. The moderators will answer this question ongoing. So ask them everything that you wanted to know about Fabric, whether it's out of our session or in general. And special thanks to our moderators, Ilga and Kevin, doing a lot of work in the background, and they know everything.
Exactly.
We are the second session in a series. So yesterday there was like an introduction. I heard that it was amazingly successful.
Yeah.
And today we talk about, basically how to get data into Fabric. And tomorrow, oh no, next week, excuse me, there will be a session about real-time intelligence and Microsoft Fabric. I think that's a pretty interesting topic.
Yes.
Frank, you are an expert on that.
Yes. I'm an expert on this, and real-time intelligence is really cool because it is about data in motion. So it's not only about data that is streamed, but it's also about data that changes, for example, CDC and stuff. And so I highly recommend to see this video, right?
Yeah, agree, absolutely. Next topic is data warehousing, how to deal with a lot of data, how to make it really fast. And then all the stuff, like the surrounding stuff, like CI/CD, like monitoring, like the security part, and Fabric administration and governance. And the last session will be about Q&A for the preparation for the exam day.
Yeah.
So I think that's really worth to attend, to get like the latest tweaks and insights to pass the exam successfully. Then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So while we are talking about the exam, there is like a 100% discount for the exam DP-700. So Microsoft is giving away 50,000 free certification exam vouchers. There's a sweepstake. You can enter it and you can win. And I think that's also, first of all, it's like a win for a voucher, and it's a big win for your career too, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But there is one thing that it can happen, that it does not work. And if it does not work, because the response on this is so overwhelming, if it does not work, please try again a little later, and then it will work, right?
Yes. And the winners are drawn weekly. So as earlier as you get in, there's more chances you have to win. So
exactly,
if it doesn't work today, you try tomorrow or whatever, but get as fast as possible on board. The chance to win is very high.
Yeah, exactly.
50,000 vouchers. That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
And when you work with Fabric, there might be some questions, because it's such a great product, so many areas covered by Fabric, more and more, and it's like, wow, a bit complicated with networking and so on. So when you have questions, there is like an ask me anything on May 15 on Reddit, the online platform, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. UTC. And there's a registration link where you can register and attend, and then you can ask basically anything that you want.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but you can ask today. There's a chat. So go ahead.
Yes.
Let's go. Ingest and manage data in Fabric with Data Factory and notebooks. What will we be talking about today? First of all, we will have like an introduction, a short overview about the DP-700, a short introduction into Fabric. Maybe you are new on the topic, maybe you are a little bit more experienced. We will get you onboarded. And then we will talk about data ingestion in Fabric, data integration in Fabric, and have a closer look at pipelines and notebooks.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there's a great certification, DP-700 Fabric Data Engineer certification. It's an intermediate level for the role of the data engineer. So you can prove your deep and advanced knowledge on Microsoft Fabric with that exam.
Yeah.
You can do it online. You can go to your preferred local testing center. Both is possible. I think most people are doing it online, at least in my area. So it's very common, and it's a very kind of low level. So the topics are ingesting and transforming data. That's our topic today. Securing and managing your solution, and monitoring and optimizing your solution. Everything is covered obviously throughout this track, this week, next week, and ongoing. And you should bring some knowledge in SQL and PySpark, custom query language, and so on. But there is the objective domain for the exam with this ak.ms/DP700 exam, where you can get all the details what's covered by this exam.
Exactly. And what we do today makes total sense in this, because one of the main things a data engineer has to do is to put data into the databases, into Fabric, because this is the very first step you have to do, right? Because if you don't have data, you cannot analyze it, right?
Yes, It's pretty hard to do analytics without data. Agree completely. Yeah. So, and you can prove your knowledge with this exam. This is the objective domain, like the skills and depth. So it's about implement and manage an analytic solutions, about 1/3. You see they are very equally distributed, the main topics here. That's not always the case for each exam, but here it's like you should spend your time wisely by third, right? So more or less. Ingest and transform data, and monitor and optimize your analytic solution with errors and performance optimization and all that stuff. And even if you are quite skilled in Fabric, it's worth to go through the study guide and all that material. At least I learn always something and say, oh, wow, that's interesting. I always ask me that question, but now I stumble across that. So there's always something that you can learn. It's even more enjoyable when you do it with your peers. So at least I like it more, and then I do it really. So yeah, can discuss and get some insights.
The other thing is that usually if you're working in a certain role at your company, you might only, for example, ingest data through notebooks or something like this. But in this doing this training and doing the certification, you will learn all the other areas how you can ingest data into Fabric as well, right?
Yes, agree. That makes the other team stuff that we learn, and you will get new ideas maybe, or you get better understanding what they are doing with your stuff and so on. Agree.
That's true.
And you never know where the future takes you in the end.
No, you don't know.
So what is this Fabric thing, right? So Fabric is great. Fabric is the data platform for the era of AI, and it has several scopes or several roles where you can enter your Fabric journey. Some are very obvious. So I think one of the very obvious is the Power BI scope, where you can enter the Fabric experience. When you were using Power BI in the past, Power BI service, for example, you might get a Fabric instance, and now you have a big new tool set that you can learn to use. But there are other entry points, like the Data Factory entry point. That's more on our side today regarding the topic. So get data into Fabric. There's the data engineering view. So how to transform data, how to do it at scale, how to work with Spark. The data warehouse part, more like the SQL point of view, where you can work with the data warehouse view with the SQL endpoints, with functions and all that stuff. The data science with models, machine learning, and it's another very different area in the end, but it's more and more integrated into the Fabric experience, and it's more in the daily work. So I at least work daily with AI multiple times. I didn't do that 5 years ago, so it's obviously changing. And again, real-time intelligence, Frank.
Hey, awesome. Well, real-time intelligence, as already said, is about streaming data, is about data that is changing, right? Data in motion, and there is a very, very good offering in Fabric as well. But Matthias, do you know what I liked about Fabric the most? I like about Fabric that on the one hand, it is a software as a service experience, so it's easy to use and you don't have to set up complicated things. And the other thing is, what I like as well, is that it will support you wherever you are in your analytical journey. So for example, if you know about Power BI, right, then you can use the Dataflows Gen 2 to get data in. And on the other hand, if you're more like a PySpark programmer or stuff like this, you can use your knowledge there as well. And this is a very, very cool thing in Fabric. It supports you where you are.
Yes. And you are always ending up in one lake.
Exactly. That's true.
That's really, really cool. Really cool experience. Oh, by the way, there's one lake. One lake is the storage foundation, kind of below or above or beside Fabric, depending on how you see that thing. So all data in Fabric is basically stored in one lake. There are some exceptions or some special cases, but in the end, everything is in one lake. So regardless of the tool set where you enter the Fabric experience, your data is stored once. There's like a once-only principle. You can do shortcuts and so on. So the same data should be only stored once in one lake in the perfect architecture. There's a unified SaaS product experience. You mentioned that already. There's security and governance. All the storage is kind of abstracted. There's just the one lake. It's managed for you. And you have the business model of the SaaS experience, which I absolutely like. And I like a lot that you don't have, at least for now, firewalls within Fabric. So everything just works. And
sure.
when you try to get data out of Azure from somewhere in a company, you usually have to go through at least 1 or 2 firewalls. And that's always like a challenge. Yeah. So really cool experience. One copy in one lake, single copy. This is like the theory. There are absolutely reasons to have a copy of data, for example, for special endpoints and so on. But from a generic point of view, the one copy idea is really cool. And it's in line with the data mesh principle anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Data engineering in Fabric. You have this houses, this idea of the houses, lake houses, warehouses, event houses. I don't know, Frank, how you think about that. I always thought, okay, I have these lakes. And with a lake, I think about, I don't know, the Lake of Geneva or something very beautiful, natural. And then I thought, okay, what's the idea with the house? So it's like a boat house, or how does it fit into that picture? Did you also think about that?
I can tell you, and because the name is an artificial name, so there, as you know, there are no lake houses in this case, right? But the name is derived from, on the one hand, the data lake. This is where the lake comes from, and on the other hand, it comes from data warehouse. This is where the house part is coming from. And the good thing on this is this also displays what a lake house is all about. So if we're talking data lake, we are thinking about, okay, we have some data which is stored in files, in Parquet files, right? Because this is usually how the data is stored in the data lake. And it is rather hard to get the data out of the Parquet files. You could use Python, PySpark, whatever, all of these technologies, I don't know. But the thing is, what a lakehouse does, and this is the cool thing, because this I know, again, is you can access this data, which is in the data lake, in these Parquet files through SQL. And this is a very cool thing. So there is a SQL endpoint, and you can just connect with everything. You can connect to a SQL endpoint, you can connect to a lakehouse, and then you can just query all of this data, which is in these Parquet files. You can query through SQL. Is this cool? And this is where the name originates.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I had a conversation with ChatGPT about that. I asked, hey, why? And he has a great idea, I think. He said, okay, basically the idea is there's a digital ocean, that's a lake, but you can think about the lake like a water reservoir, because most of the water reservoirs are getting the water out of a lake. So, and then from the reservoir, you bring the water to the different houses where you use the data. And I found that pretty fascinating. From that point of view.
It's a good analogy. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, well, you have Spark. Spark is blazingly fast for transforming your data, great performance, robust admin controls, and so on. And you have this delightful authoring experience, which is Visual Studio Code. As you can see, you can do so great things with Visual Studio Code and Fabric. You have fantastic keyboard experience. You have even now a command line experience, which I really love. So for me, that's one of the best parts in Fabric, that you can use your keyboard if you want.
Exactly. And Visual Studio Code, I live in Visual Studio Code, literally. So this is a program which is always running on my computer.
So it's like a Visual Studio Code house connected.
Yeah, probably not, but
one leg. Okay. And everything is sitting on the Fabric experience, the Fabric foundation. So Fabric gives you the unified monitoring and security, and last but not least, the unified billing. There's like one bill that you have to pay, and you get all the experience out of that.
That's true.
Which is also great. So how to get data into this fascinating platform?
Yes. Let's have a look at this. So first of all, there are many different ways how to get data into Fabric. So first of all, you have the Dataflows Gen 2. And I think, Matthias, you know them already as well, right? Because these are data flows which are exactly the same, or the interface is exactly the same than if you get data into Power BI, right? Because if you get data into Power BI, you're using Power Query, and Dataflows Gen 2 can be seen a little bit like a Power Query in the cloud, right? Or in the browser. And there's one very important distinction between Power Query and Dataflows Gen 2. Do you know it? The distinction is that in Dataflows Gen 2 you can have a data target or a data destination, which you don't have in Power BI, because in Power BI the data destination is a semantic model. It's Power BI is a semantic model, right? And here you can use the Dataflow Gen 2, for example, to get data into a lakehouse, maybe, right?
Yes.
The next thing.
I agree.
Yes?
I think there's one other distinction, for me at least. It's living in the browser. So you have a browser experience. You don't need Power BI Desktop. And I don't have Power BI Desktop available on all my platforms that I'm using. So this is also a big differentiator for me.
Okay. Yeah. So what you literally can do in Dataflows Gen 2, as you know from Power BI already, is you can transform your data, right? Because there is a simple fact in life, and the simple fact in life is that the data which is extracted from some systems, like, for example, some OLTP systems or something like this data doesn't have the form or the shape that you need to analyze data, right? And so what you could do with the Dataflows Gen 2 is you can transform your data as you can transform your data within Power BI. Next thing are the data factory pipelines. The data factory pipelines are used to orchestrate things. So maybe I think probably we are maybe the same age, Matthias, and so I think you remember the SQL Server integration services, right? Where you could just put on all the boxes, and you can put in all the transformations. And the data factory pipeline is similar to that. So what you could do is you can orchestrate your data load by using data factory pipelines. In data factory pipelines, you can use all the other assets. So what you could use, for example, is you could use a Dataflow Gen 2, but you can use notebooks as well, right? And if you do this, then and you can do some other things. For example, that if something doesn't work, then maybe you get an email, or maybe if something doesn't work, then you could probably start a notebook which could repair this, something like this, right? And this leads us to the next thing, to the notebooks. So what we could do as well is, because notebooks are very flexible and very versatile, they are running on top of Spark cluster, right? And within a notebook, you can use different languages. Like, for example, you could use PySpark, you could use Scala, you can even use SQL. And what you could do through these notebooks is you can load data through the notebooks as well. So if you, for example, know how, and probably I don't know, but if you, for example, know how to load files into Python, then you can use this. You can transform the data which comes from these files in Python, and afterwards you can write it, for example, to a Parquet file or stuff like this, right? And this is a very cool thing. And so the distinction maybe between Dataflows Gen 2 and notebooks is Dataflows Gen 2, as on this slide, is a low-code experience. So this is more like that you can just click things, right? And the notebooks is a pro-code experience, so you are coding, right? And this is one of the distinctions. And therefore, in the notebooks, everything you can program is possible to do, right? The other thing is, if we are looking at Dataflows Gen 2 and notebooks, because they run on this Python cluster, not Python cluster, sorry, on this cluster, Spark, exactly. On the Spark cluster, notebooks are very good use, or can be used very, very good for large amounts of data, right? Because the data is processed on this cluster. Another thing is, probably you do not want to bring data into your environment because it doesn't work, because maybe you have some big data estate somewhere else, like for example at Amazon Web Services, or even if you have data within Fabric, you don't want to copy the data. Because if you don't copy the data, you have a big problem. You have 2 copies or more copies. And the thing is, these copies have to be current. These copies have to be updated, right? And to prevent this, and this is the idea behind OneLake, is, okay, we only have 1 copy of the data, and we can share this copy, for example, through shortcuts. So if you are, and this is again something I like very much. So if you use, for example, a KQL database with streaming data, and you want to enrich the streaming data through some other data, like for example through product data, through some more static data, which is, for example, in your lakehouse, you can have a shortcut in the KQL database, and then you can access this data as if it would as if it would be in this KQL database. And you can do vice versa, right? So you can have a shortcut everywhere where the data is, right? The other thing is mirroring. Mirroring is if you have, for example, databases, and if you would like, for example, Azure SQL database or something like this, if you would like to mirror this into Fabric, because the database is where your OLTP system lives, where your CRM system is, where your ERP system is, whatever, right? And if you want to mirror this data, this is possible. And did you watch the keynote of the FabCon in Vegas, Matthias? There was a very interesting. There was a very interesting thing. So they announced that it will be possible to have mirroring from on-prem databases, and even from on-prem databases like Oracle, for example. So if you have a system which runs on an Oracle database, you could just mirror the data into OneLake. And this is a very cool thing. And this is another thing where you can just get data into your database. And there is even more to this. If you a very new functionality of Fabric is that you can have SQL databases within Fabric. So it's the same like if you would like to have an Azure SQL database, but with one distinction. The distinction is that the data which is in this database will automatically mirrored into your Fabric environment, into OneLake. So you just build this database, build your system, whatever, and all the data which is in this database will automatically be mirrored. So you don't have to do anything on this. It will you can save so much cost on developing ingestion, and you can have this ready for your Bronx layer. And the other thing, what you could always do, if there is, Matthias, there are always these things like, oh, I have this Excel file, and I have this CSV file, and I have whatever, right? And the other thing, what you could do, and it doesn't make sense to build some pipeline for this or something, because it's one shot only, right? What you always can do in all of these experiences, you can have a direct upload. So you can directly upload your CSV file, you can directly upload your Excel file and use the data which is in there. Okay, so let's move on and let's see.
And there's also an Windows File Explorer integration for that, right?
Exactly. This is amazing. This is really cool. Yeah. And this is another thing. The OneLake is not only because you only want to have one copy for the data. The other thing is, and this is very good thing, Matthias. The other thing is that OneLake is something like your OneDrive for data. So as you said, there is this app, and if I use the app, it is more or less like I would use OneDrive, right? And I can just put in my CSV file or whatever. Right?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Just one remark maybe regarding notebooks and Dataflows Gen 2, because I like notebooks a lot, because you have like an inline debugging output. You can do even graphics and so on to find or see errors faster, and you can use it as reports. Even so, like a chameleon. You can use it at different places, from repeating data import to display and explain data. So I think that's pretty amazing. And I think when you move the same amount of data, you need less credits when you use notebooks compared to Dataflows Gen 2 usually, at least in my experiences.
Yes, but maybe one more thing. I can tell you what I like about notebooks very much. So what I like about notebooks very much is that you can have not only the code and the graphics and stuff like this in the notebook, but you can also have the documentation. So if you have if you have some complex things, and I think, Matthias, you know these complex things from your experience with AI, right? If you have complex things, then you can just put in a very nice and very readable documentation in Markdown, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah, agreed. And we all love documentations. But I think we agree, we really like notebooks. That's cool.
Yes.
You should make a notebook session. Yeah.
So, let's move on. Okay. So, when we are thinking about, okay, you have seen there are so many different kinds of how can I get my data into Fabric, right? And so the thing is, and this is my clients ask me often as well, is, okay, Frank, what shall I choose from this list? And well, the thing is, we have to think about the different things. So the first thing we already talked about is data volume, right? It depends on how much data you would like to ingest into your environment, and this, on some cases, dictates which technology to use, right?
Yes.
The other thing is, what data type do you have, right? Do you have like Excel files? Do you have like maybe a SQL server? Do you have like CSV files? This is another important thing. And what's important as well is that if you do the transformation, then you will always do a data type conversion there as well. For example, say we are importing a CSV file, right? And if we import the CSV file, then the problem could be, or not the problem, but the thing is that, first of all, because it's just a text file, everything is text. And what we could do through our ingestion is we can say, okay, in this column there is a number, and in this column there is text or something like this, and this makes it easier for the database system to work with the data. The other thing, which is also interesting, is the ingestion frequency, right? So how often would you load your data? Is it like a data warehousing scenario where you load data only once a day, or maybe four times a day, or something like this? Or what you can think about as well is, okay, maybe we need some streaming ingestion. So this is where the real-time intelligence part comes in, right? Where we do streaming ingestion of data as it is and as it comes in. So in this case, you have the most current data within your analytical environment and within your analytics, right? Another thing we always talked about this is developer persona and skill set. So it depends very much on which developers you have and what the skill set of the developer is. Because as said, Fabric opens for a broad range of skill sets, right? And it depends on, okay, maybe if we have developers who are very skilled on Python, right? Maybe it is a good idea to use notebooks and not use the Dataflows Gen 2, because they are already professionals in Python, right?
Yeah.
Then another thing is the integration needs. So how should this data be integrated, and for sure the performance requirements. I already talked a little bit about this. So if you have a large amount of data and if you want to ingest it quickly, maybe a Spark cluster would be a better choice than, for example, Dataflow Gen 2, right? Because the Spark cluster will also, because it's a cluster, it will divide stuff and stuff like this. And this is, and Spark clusters are more for like the big data technologies, right? In comparison to the Dataflows. And the other thing is the complexity of
I think we would like to say the same. Go ahead.
Okay. And the other thing is the complexity of the data transformations, right?
Yes.
Where we have to integrate the data and how we do this.
Yeah, okay. And I think there's like a combination, because sometimes, at least in my area, we have to do pre-checks before we can pull the data in. And when they are a little bit complex, like geodata or spatial data or something like that, there are then more, the need more towards notebooks and other checks you can do better with, I don't know, data flows and so on. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is all about, because what is very important, and I like the idea of your checks, right? Because what is very important is that you have valid data in there. Because and it's even more important if you train AI, right?
Yeah, agree.
Okay. So let's move on.
We'll do. Oh, we have performance requirements and the complexity. Yeah, we did everything. So go ahead. So,
okay.
Integrate data sources in Fabric.
Yes. So let's see what we have here. So first of all, we already talked about the data factory workload, and the data factory workload consists of 4 different things on Dataflows Gen 2, pipelines, notebooks, and real-time analytics. And I think Dataflows Gen 2, pipelines, notebooks, we already spoke much about this, right? Do you have something you would like to add here on this, or do you think we covered all of this? If not, I can just tell a little bit about real-time analytics. So as said, real-time analytics consists of different things. You will see in the real-time analytics session, and you will also see we have a slide on this in the back, right? So real-time analytics will be another thing. The only thing I would like to add here might be, so if you have an analytical solution, maybe you have even different kinds of data streams you would like to ingest. On the one hand, you have the batch data, you have your data warehouse, and it is totally okay to ingest the data once a day, right? Because it doesn't, there are not so many changes. And on the other hand, you have the data streams. And the top components, the top data factory workloads like Dataflows Gen 2, pipelines, and notebooks are more like for these batch jobs, while real-time analytics is for streaming.
Yeah, agree.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you think regarding the future, the data movements are more going like real time, or do you think it's more like staying in the batch mode?
No, I think that you know that business is spinning faster and faster and faster, right?
Yeah.
And there are also I think studies from Forbes magazine also, which said, well, the amount of real-time data that we need is rising in the next years, right? And the other thing is, as already said, so you don't have to have a data stream for real-time analytics. It would, another scenario, which would be also a valid scenario, would be if you have something like, for example, the change data capture, right? You have your database, and the change data capture runs there, and whenever a new data set is inserted or something like this, these information through real-time analytics is instantly put into Fabric. And the good thing on this is, in real-time analytics, there is a thing which is called activator. And through this activator, you can do actions on the data. So when a certain kind of data comes in, right, you can act on this. And you can not only act on this by writing an email or pinging someone in Teams or something like this, you can even act on this by executing a Power Automate flow.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And I think this is the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's also my experience. There's like an increasing need for having things in real time. You still need the batch stuff for the archive data and for the historical data and so on. But you have like 2 parallel streams, more and more. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is that this is very much in your part of expertise. Is the other thing is data can be processed faster and faster and faster through AI, right?
Yeah.
Because this is the other thing, and so I think we agree that real-time analytics will be much more important in the future. Okay, let's move on. Let's see what we got here as well as next. Matthias, still there? Okay, I think we probably lost Matthias. So I will just share my screen. And sorry for that. And yeah, there he is gone. I will just share my screen and we will go on with the presentation. Let's see. Okay. Oops.
Hi.
So hi. I
think there was like an interruption. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So can you see my screen or not? Probably.
I think I see the screen. So I think we are back.
You see the slide or you see the screen?
I see the slide.
You see the slide.
Now I see your screen.
Okay. Okay, then let's go to the slide back again, please. Sorry for that.
There we go.
Awesome. There we go. So Pipelines. Okay, let's talk a little bit about pipelines. We already talked about this, right? So what you do is in pipelines, you have different kinds of activities. So there are, first of all, data transformations. These data transformations could be like a notebook, could be like a Dataflow Gen 2. If you only want to copy the data, there is a very good thing on this as well, the copy data task. You can see here up here, right? And the copy data task is also known for that it is very quick. So if it is, if you want to ingest data very quickly, you can use and for sure in a frequency, right? Then or on a schedule, then you can use the copy data task. And as you can see here, you can orchestrate your data movements. Like for example, that after the copy data task, in this case, there is a fail, so it fails. And the other thing, what you could do then is you can just call a notebook, for example, right? Another interesting thing, yeah.
But I'm a bit confused. We talked about data flows, we talked about notebooks, and now we have pipelines. When to use what?
The pipelines, so the notebooks and the data flows, the notebooks and the Dataflows Gen 2, yes, exactly, are used to transform data. And you can use them, for example, depending on the amount of data, depending on your knowledge, right? The pipelines are used to orchestrate this. So what you could do is you can orchestrate all your transformations, which are in the notebooks and which are in the Dataflow Gen 2, you can orchestrate through the pipelines. And what you could use the pipelines as well is for this control flow. So as you can see here, there is a simple control flow from it consists of 3 boxes, right? And when the first box or when the first task is completed successfully, then the second task will start. And if this is completed successfully, the next part will start. And you can put in here some other things, like for example, you can have an email if something fails or something like this, right? And this is done through the pipelines. And the very cool thing is that pipelines can be parameterized. So if you have to do the same tasks over and over again, right? And but with a little bit of different, right? What you could do in this case is you can build one pipeline, and this one pipeline gets parameters, and through these parameters you can just build all your different kinds of activities you need, right? Another thing which is also important are the pipeline ones. So the pipeline ones is you can see how the pipeline was executed. You can see how long it took. You can see another thing you can see there is if it succeeded or if it failed. And this is something where you can have a good overview on, okay, what has happened, what is happening, and how does it work, right? This is really, really cool and really helpful if something doesn't went well. And if you see in the pipeline runs, you can also see some information about what has happened, right?
Gotcha.
Okay, so let's move on. Let's see what we got next. So this is a little video, right, where you can see how this works. So first of all, you have to select. There are different templates for pipelines as well, which is also cool. They are a little bit similar to the templates you find in Power Automate, right? There are many different templates in Power Automate. Here, there are not so many different templates, but there are some. And these templates help you to get a head start on building your pipeline, right? And this is really cool. So if you do this, then you will just have like a head start where already some components are configured. Okay, let's move on. And this is another thing where you can see how easy it is. For example, in this case, you can just if your copy data task has succeeded, you can write an email. In this case, now we are including a data flow, right? So in this case, this data flow just will transform the data, and you can see how easy this is. This is a no-code, low-code experience to just ingest data from where into your database, and not in your database, into Fabric, right? Which is also very, very convenient. And Matthias, as I already asked you or already told you, this looks like a modern version of integration services, right?
Yes.
It's the same. It's always
in a positive
about,
way.
in a positive, yeah, for sure, in a positive way. It's always about connecting boxes with arrows, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's move on. Let's see where we go. Let's see the next thing we got.
It's a copy job.
So yeah, the copy job. The copy job is a very, very cool copy job and a very fast copy job. And it's also very easy. So in the copy job, as you can see here, there is like a wizard. And the only thing you have to do is you have to go through this wizard. And it's a very good and very nice experience where the wizard tells you all the steps you have to configure this copy job, right? And this is also really cool. It's a very easy experience. It's very very like Power BI, for example, right, where you can easily just ingest some data. Okay.
Yeah.
So
and it supports both, right? Batch and
yeah.
CDC, near real time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is also very cool. So yes, and this is something we already talked a little bit about. If you have pipelines, right, you have several steps you could use, and these steps are marked up in the top of different options you can have. First of all, there's a validate option. This validate option will tell you if you build a valid pipeline. So, for example, it will point out if you missed some crucial information that is mandatory information for a certain step in your pipeline, right? Because, for example, if you want to have a copy job, but you forget to tell what has to be copied, right? Where the file is, something like this, right? It cannot run. And this will be shown here, that would say, well, it doesn't work, and you cannot start it. The second one is run. So if you click on run, then you will immediately execute your pipeline. And this is something you could use, for example, while developing, and to see, okay, is the pipeline, is it ingesting the data? Does this work, right? And then if everything works and everything is okay, you could schedule, right? So you could schedule and say, well, I would like that my pipeline will be executed every night at 10 a.m., at 10 p.m. or something like this, right? And then every night at 10 p.m., your pipeline will be executed and it will just ingest the data, for example, from your data warehouse. The last thing we have is the run history. And the run history, we already talked a little bit about it, but you can see it here on the right side of the screen. The run history is about all the runs that this pipeline has executed, and you see not only if the pipeline has completed successfully, you can see it with a green mark, right? Or if, for example, if the pipeline failed, if something didn't went well. And you can, and if you go in there, you can even see what the problem was. So whenever you see like this red failed bubble there, then you can see, okay, let's find out what the problem was. Maybe your source system was not available, for example. Could be.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very intuitive, like I think.
Yes. Yeah. It's very intuitive. Okay. So
notebooks.
Yeah, notebooks. I spotted that you are a very big friend of notebooks. So please tell us a little bit about notebooks, Matthias.
Yeah, these are notebooks. You have different cells in notebooks. It's a little bit like the OneNote for data scientists. Yeah. So you can write code. You can write documentation. I don't think we have documentation cell here. No, it's all code cells. We have documentation in the code, of course. But you can also put in markdown cells to do explanations. And you see we have this magic command in the middle where you can person SQL, and then we can just write SQL code. So it's very, very handy.
So you say that because this notebook is Python, right? And you say that within this notebook, I can switch a single cell to some other language. How awesome is this?
Yes. Well, that's amazing, right? You can simply type person SQL, and then you can write SQL. You can do it, of course, with Python functions or PySpark functions too, but that's very easy and very clean when you read the notebook. You see what's happening.
I would do it the other way
around. A table.
I would have a SQL notebook, and in cases I need Python, I would then have a Python set.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah, and all the output is just displayed below the cell.
Yes.
So in the first cell, we don't have any output. Here we have at least the output, no data available. But you could also give like tables for some information. You can even create some graphics or whatever, histograms and so on. So it's very intuitive, and you can do that even for scheduled notebooks. And when you need to go a little bit in to understand what's happening, maybe the schema has changed or the data type has changed in the source or whatever, you can see it very, very easy. I like it a lot. And you have versioning too.
Yes. Yeah, which is really cool. That's true.
Yeah. So when you change something, you can go back, you can compare, and you have Visual Studio Code. So, well, it's like heaven.
Yeah, that's true as well. Although I'm coming more from the SQL Server side of things, right? I started with SQL Server 7. I like notebooks very much because exactly of this, and because, well, we cannot see it on the screenshot, but because of this Markdown. Because I think if you have a really good Markdown document with headings, with subheadings, stuff like this, it's much easier to read than a comment which is in the code.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can use generative AI like Copilot to help you with documentation and Markdown and so on. And code.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can use notebooks. Well, I think you told everything, right? For ingest and transform data, schedule and orchestrate. You can integrate it in a pipeline.
Yes. But you don't have to. This is another cool thing. What you can do is you can just schedule. If it's only your notebook, right? There is no. You don't want to send an email. You don't want to do stuff like this. And it's only your notebook. What you can do is you can just schedule this one notebook, which is also very, very cool.
Yeah, yeah. You can manage your dependencies in the code, right? You need, for example, some modules and so on.
Yeah. But maybe there is a tip for real environments. What you should do. So if you go in the internet on GitHub or somewhere and get some demo notebooks from Microsoft, for example, there is always a part where they install libraries, right? If you do this in a production environment, it makes much more sense what you could do with the notebooks as well as you can have an environment. And in this environment, you can install the libraries, so the libraries will not be installed over and over and over again whenever you are on the notebook. Right. Yeah.
That's a really good point, and they might be pre-approved depending on the environment too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So we can run it interactively. We can run it within a pipeline or with a scheduler.
Yes.
Different options. Yeah.
And here
we have some screenshots for that.
Yeah. Exactly. Here we can see how we can run a notebook in a pipeline, and we were already talking about parameters and stuff like this, right? And in this case, we can also give parameters to the notebook through the pipeline. So depending on what has happened before the notebook was executed, we can then give this information as a parameter to the notebook, and the notebook will then run according to what has happened before, right? This is also a very, very cool thing.
Yeah, it's really handy. Completely agree.
Here we can see
a data Gen 2.
Yeah, exactly. Here we can see a Dataflow Gen 2. And as you can see, it is rather easy in the Dataflow Gen 2 to create some ingestion. I think everyone who has already opened Power BI desktop on his PC sometime will just instantly recognize, right? The only, as we already told, the only distinction is if you look at the right corner in the bottom, then you see the data destination, right? This is exactly there. This is where it is distinct from the experience you have in Power BI. Apart from that, it is the same. And what you could do here is you can also extract data from multiple sources for sure, transform it and load that in this destination. And here again, you can run a data flow independently, or you can run it as an activity in a pipeline if the data flow is one small piece of a puzzle of a very big ingestion pipeline, for example, which is cool as well. Huh? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Real-time analytics or real-time intelligence. So if we look at this, so real-time intelligence, which is a new name for real-time analytics. real-time intelligence is made of several things. So first of all, we have all our data sources, and then we have event streams. An event stream is something like the like a representation of a data stream, right? And in this event stream, you can do different things. For example, what you could do easily there, and this is something you will learn in the other session as well. What you could do easily here is you can transform your data as your data streams in. So for every piece of data which streams in, you can have some transformation, like for example, filtering or grouping or stuff like this, right? And then you have this event house. The event house is like a container, and in this container there live KQL databases. KQL databases are very, very capable databases because they were developed by Microsoft. You know for what reason they were developed, Matthias?
For event streaming in Azure, and
yeah,
I know it from that part at least.
Yeah, and they were developed for log analytics, because
log analytics and all that stuff.
What's below log analytics? And Microsoft, when they started with Azure, they were thinking about, okay, we need so we will have lots of logs, right? Because there will be a tremendous amount of logs, and because we have millions of servers with millions of services with millions of virtual machines, and so they needed technology which can cope this, right? And in this case, they developed the KQL databases, and the KQL databases are part of Event House, and they are used for the data storage for the streaming data. And you can store, as said, you can store tremendous amounts of data in there. Then you have the KQL query sets. The KQL query sets, these are part of the Event House, and in the KQL query sets, you can think about like for example, a set of tabs where KQL code is in, right? And these set of tabs, it looks very similar, for example, to SQL Server Management Studio. And you can save KQL query sets within the environment as well, which is a good thing if you want to collaborate with people, right? So you can just put in the code, and then, for example, I can write something, and you can then afterwards, you can access this tool, and you can just alter it, see what I've done, stuff like this. Another thing, and this is a distinction from Power BI. So what you could do is all of the data which streams into your Event House can be visualized through Power BI, because there is the Power BI connector, and you can just connect the data which is in the Event House, and then you can display. But there is another thing. These are the real-time dashboards, and the real-time dashboards are meant for streaming data. So if you have data which is constantly changing, think about a big screen in a factory floor or something like this, and on the screen there are the current values of how a machine operates, stuff like this, right? Then you can use a real-time dashboard for this, and this is especially for the exploration of real-time data. So it might, if you build a report on this or a dashboard, right, it might not look as posh as a very good style Power BI dashboard. But on the other hand, the real-time dashboards are more like for technical people to see, okay, how things move, how things are. It's not about the cool graphics or something like this. It's about the data.
Yeah,
and
a little bit like monitoring or getting more insights.
Exactly.
I agree.
Exactly.
I use it the same way.
And the other thing is the activator. The activator, we already talked a little bit about this. The activator is a very cool thing, because with the activator you can act on data. So you have the stream and you have your real-time dashboard, right? But what you don't want to have is, you don't want to have a person who is sitting before the real-time dashboard 24/7, and if something is happening, if some anomalies show up or something like this, this person will call you, because there is no person sitting in front of a monitor for 24/7, right? So what you could do here is, with the activator, you can act on things which happen in your data. So, and there are two things. So the first thing is, you can use the activator, for example, from within a real-time dashboard, and then a pane will show up, and this pane is very basic. So what you can configure, for example, is you can configure if a value passes a certain threshold or something like this, you will get a Teams message, or you will get an email or stuff like this. But what you can do, and this is the cool thing, is if you go in the full-fledged activator experience, You can define things like, for example, so you will define objects from your data stream. Like think about you have a data stream which is streaming data on parcel deliveries, right? Yeah. What you can do there is you can have an object which is a parcel, and on this object will have different properties, like for example a temperature, right? And what you can do is you can on these properties you can define different kinds of activators or different kinds of alarms. So, for example, if we have this package, and we could do things like, okay, in this package are plants, and if the temperature goes above a certain level, then we will like to have an alert on this because the plants will not survive this. On the other hand, what you could do as well is that you can have a medicine in this, and if there is medicine, then you can have a warning if the temperature goes below a certain level. And this is brilliant if you define this. It is really cool. Yeah. Okay.
Completely agree.
Yeah, really cool. So let's move on. So some practical tips for success. Let's see. So first of all, what you should do is you should do hands-on practice, right? Because it's always better if you are really an expert or really if you know the things, if you know where to click, if you know how the screens look like, right? Then for sure, if you go on the webpage for DP-700, you see study guides and resources. There is also a practice test with questions which are for sure not in the exam, but these questions are a little bit similar, or at least they will ask you some knowledge you might need in the test. There are the Microsoft Learn courses, which I like very much, and I also like this approach with this gamification that you get badges and stuff like this. Yeah. And what you should do as well is you should use some sample projects, and you do something where you ingest data and see, okay, how does this platform behave, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the bottom right, there's the ak.ms/fabric trial. So when you want to get started, you can simply use the fabric trial. It's valid for 60 days, and you can change the world in that time, basically.
It's not so small as well, right? Because it's like a F64, which is
it is
pretty good. Yes. Okay.
Pretty cool.
So we talked a little bit about implementing real-time intelligence, but you will see on May the 7th, there is a full session on exactly that, where you see how do I build a real-time intelligence solution in Microsoft Fabric, and which are the moving parts, what do I have to configure, stuff like this. Very, very interesting. Afterwards, we have data warehousing, right? This is another big part. Then we have the Fabric environment. What is important here as well is CI/CD, right? Where it is about continuous integration and continuous deployment. Because if you click all of this, it's nice. But the thing is, this is not something for enterprises, because enterprises want to have the code in a code repository. So you can have versioning, stuff like this, right? Yeah. Then we will see
Azure DevOps.
Exactly. Azure Dev or GitHub, exactly. And then we will see Microsoft Fabric administration and governance on May 15th, and on May 21st, there is a dedicated session on how to prepare for the exam, and there is open questions and answers as well. Okay, so yes.
Finally, when you're ready for the exam, you can get your voucher for free. ak.ms/guest/DP-700. That's a sweepstake.
Yeah,
and just jump in, giving away these vouchers every week.
Yeah, how cool is that? Okay, so we reached the last slides on questions, and I'm very sure that our awesome moderators have taken all of the questions. At least I cannot see any questions here in the chat. So and if there are any other questions, just reach out, and we might be able to help you and to solve these questions. Okay.
Thanks for attending. Thanks for having us.
And
thanks to the moderators and the organizers, and
thanks to you,
everybody around.
And thanks to you.
Thanks to you.
Was a really nice
Frank.
Session.
And
thank you.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So take care. Bye bye, and see you in the next session.
Bye bye. Next session. Bye bye.